and welcome back. So, good news. It does seem as if the rise of anti-immigration policy is actually affecting policy on a whole European scale, actually, as Denmark decides to be the European leader in becoming the first European nation to tell Syrian refugees they must return home, saying their country is now safe. And they've been doing this over the past couple of years, just trying to work out which areas of Syria are more safe. And so far it's only affected a few hundred Syrian refugees in Denmark. But, of course, the slippery slope works both ways. And if this is the case, as it is being put across, then this is definitely good news for the rest of Europe to actually follow suit. Obviously, you're going to have to take somebody who's got the courage to step into the darkness themselves, but they can create the path and light the way behind them for others to follow. So that is what we're hoping to see here from Denmark leading the charge. So Denmark has latest stripped 94 Syrian refugees in the country of residency permits. However, they're not forced to leave, but they will be sent to deportation camps and accommodated there. The revocation of permits comes after Denmark deemed Damascus as safe. Denmark's ruling centre-left Social Democratic Party, I'll just say that again, centre-left Social Democratic Party has taken a fierce anti-immigration stance in an effort to fend off challenges from parties on the right. And let's just do a little bit of history here to say that trying to be anti-immigration doesn't really align with the left and the right. I mean, what is the idea there? That the right is for the rich and the upper class to hold on to their money, and then the left is for the working man in order to make their way up and not be taken advantage of by the wealthy. I believe that to be the idea. So surely, and historically, you got the left that are against immigration because it's for the working man, and that's why you had like the Berlin Wall, for example, in Germany, and satellite states from the USSR. And then on the right, they're saying, well, we should bring in more cheap labour and open borders because it doesn't really affect us wealthy guys. In fact, it just makes our life easier because things are cheaper, and no one can really get a foothold in moving their way up because we're preventing them from doing so. We're undercutting them at every opportunity. But somewhere along the line, those two flipped, which really just makes me think the whole left and right thing, if ever you needed another case for it not really being very useful, there's another one. So Germany had previously ruled that criminals could be returned to Syria. What a relief. But Denmark becomes first country in Europe to rule migrants can be returned. So of course, with there being such an uproar of the refugee crisis, not in so much as a load of people moving over, but the crisis being it is changing not only the demographics of the area, but also the culture of the area. As in, Sweden having the largest use of grenades and explosives outside of a country in a war state, or state of war. That kind of thing starts to raise questions. Then when you've got the sexual assaults and rapes from around Germany, New Year's Eve a few years back as well, and that being because of a so-called difference in culture, and other Scandinavian countries saying, oh, well, we just need to re-educate them because they don't understand that raping teenage girls is a crime because it's just a difference in culture, and all cultures are beautiful, as Sargon used to make videos about, of course. But now, after that refugee crisis, that they're going with, okay, cool, well, we can then deport the criminals. But of course, with someone like Erdogan, of course, saying, well, we will replace them through repopulation. That a first world country seems to be below the repopulation rate, as in each person will have fewer than one child on average. So a couple has about 1.8, depending on which country you're looking at. But that average is only brought up because of the immigration, which is again then easy, low-skilled labour in order to line pockets with minimum competition. That's the idea behind that. And that's becoming more well-known as well. So it is no longer just the overt criminals, but it is fifth columnists and subversive behaviour which is being noted, whether intentional or not, whether it be part of a bigger conspiracy or not, or simply going, well, hey, this is what our leaders are saying. This is also the way that we live our life. Therefore, we are going to continue to do as we're told and live our life, despite being in a new environment. And the response of that is, of course, a breakdown of society and a lack of cohesion within the civilizations that the migrants are moving to. So in response, now things are kind of clearing up in Syria. I mean, funny that after Trump's 4 years, but moving on from that, they're gone, now there are more safe areas, including Damascus and the surrounding area. So, U-94, you can go back. Not that they're forced to leave, of course, but they don't really have a choice, unless they wish to claim refugee status in another country, which they can do. The idea, of course, from the UN is to the nearest safe country. Now, I don't think I need to tell you just how far away Denmark is from Syria, but that's making it at least a little bit ridiculous. And to help in this, you got Mathias Tesfaye, who's Denmark's immigration minister, who himself, as there's a photo of him here, is clearly not native Danish, just to try and help silence some people who only give a shit about skin colour and ethnicity, saying that last month the country had been open and honest from the start with refugees coming from Syria. To quote, "We have made it clear to the Syrian refugees that their residence permit is temporary. It can be withdrawn if protection is no longer needed." Close quote. His comments came as Denmark extended the parts on Syria consider safe people to return, to include the southern Rif Damashq governorate. He also said, "We must give people protection for as long as it is needed, but when conditions in the home country improve, a former refugee should return home and re-establish a life there." And Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has promised to target 0 asylum seekers applying for residence in the country, which I think is what we all hope for. I mean, surely that is the world that you want to aim towards, no matter what your political persuasion is. You do not want there to be refugees. You do not want there to have to be refugees anywhere. So that is something good to work for. And I think that's the, I suppose, clever language game that they might be trying to play. If they say, well, yeah, we're aiming for there to be 0, and other people saying, oh no, you can't have that, you've got to let people in. It's like, well, do you want war to be going on forever? And of course there are a few war hawks, mainly up for the military-industrial complex in the US. But for the vast majority of people, we do not want these endless wars at all. So it's good. So they say this is on top of the roughly 900 refugees from Damascus who had their cases reopened last year. So as I say, that it is only a few hundred, just tipping over 1,000. But nonetheless, as a trendsetter, as a pathfinder, this is definitely good news. If you can find that it is safe, after, of course, not being so, with millions of people misplaced from their homes, and tens of thousands suffering horrific atrocities against them from their government on their own people. I am not downplaying that at all. I've got questions how it all came about, and maybe Gaddafi trying to get off the dollar and making his own oil-backed currency wasn't such a good idea to go against the world banks, and maybe the world banks, mainly from the US, shouldn't have intervened as much as they did, but nonetheless, that's what happened, and that's the situation that we are in now. So if we can now start to put that behind us and allow people to move back and try and rebuild, then by all means do. However, of course, do not allow another power vacuum to form, because that is where ISIS came up beforehand. You can look at other examples like Japan or Germany, that after the Second World War, for example, when there was an occupation that remained there in order to help reconstruct things, they did substantially better than, of course, the Middle East that's been in a mess for many decades, at the very least, depending on how you view it, centuries. But yeah, of course, there's been pushback from various human rights groups with their own agendas. After all, they are the NGOs that are getting paid to ship people across, as Lauren Southern showed. Don't hear much from her anymore. Wonder why. I guess Borderless and Farmlands weren't very well received as they're going against the narrative. But yes, in Borderlands she does go into detail about that and how you can't always trust what the human rights groups are saying, given how they're making most of their money. But we'll end on that note. The good news that hopefully Britain can decide to follow suit, especially with news like this coming out, that is going to reignite, as if it needed it, the desire to end the asylum seeker and refugee status for so many people, and say, well then yeah, it's about time that you decided it's safe back home, you're more welcome back there, especially if you're complaining about a load of racism and xenophobia over here. How about we'll leave you to it, off you fuck. But let me know what you guys think down below. Do you think this is a bit too good to be true, or just isn't enough done at all and we're getting ahead of ourselves? Either way, always intrigued to hear what you guys have to say. And as always, until next time, have a good one.